Looks like it's recording.
Yes, yeah, here we go. So yeah, welcome everybody officially for the first of 2020 Cloud Foundry on Kubernetes calls. Happy New Year to everybody. As mentioned earlier, I think we still have a draw between like the dual approach topic and the Kubernetes or requirements to Kubernetes components topic. Anybody wants to raise an opinion on which one to tackle? Preferably the people that haven't voted yet, yes.
Should we try actually limiting the time we use so we can plan for two topics and stop discussing one instead of like drifting off topic?
I guess it would make sense in general, but Eric mentioned that the pivots need to drop off after half an hour.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I guess we'll realistically only have time for one topic for today. But in general, I think it's good.
Well, actually, Alex just joined.
Yeah, Alex
so maybe we could have some discussion of some of the ideas in his document. I know we've kind of talked about integration issues for the past couple of times. And maybe as just some follow-up, so I know you're working on kind of a more comprehensive and concrete proposal for the integration work that Relent has been researching and is planning to start in earnest soon.
That's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're planning to send out a form for comment to the community later this week or early next week.
That's accurate. Yep.
Awesome.
So, and I think also as we get more of those proposals out and have discussions there, the app runtime PMC is also going to be a good venue to discuss some of those details as well.
Mm-hmm. So then, I guess over to Alexander. Not sure that everybody read the document, but maybe like brief intro, Alexander, from your end.
Okay, yeah, so I think 3 months ago, there was this CF Gates Day on SUSE, and we discussed that we move into more Kubernetes native Cloud Foundry, and that one thing that's been up in my head that we need to have, that's been up in like in the conversation that we don't have good restrictions like Bosch gives us. And people don't know good practices. They know how to deploy things with Bosch probably, but not with Kubernetes. And my idea was to get my knowledge of best practices that I experienced as when working on CFCR, Cloud Foundry Container Runtime, and Irene. What are the good things? What I know from community? Try to translate all the documents that I could find. All the different people wrote similar documents, but with less things. And idea is that we need to show that Cloud Foundry is becoming more Kubernetes idiomatic, not cloud native or Kubernetes native, but more idiomatic, that it looks more like something that experts wrote and not something like, I know, some random people that need to get their money right now from the companies wrote, and they just, just create Docker image and that's it. So that's why I wrote this document, and it goes from like lowest level, how to write code, something how to write code, to the highest level, go like how to package things, how to write different YAMLs. It's not official. I'm not sure how to make it a bit more official. I got some feedback on this. I got some things like some ideas how to change it while working on Irene since I started it. And yeah, I mean, I want people to give a bit more feedback. And what is, I don't know, what can be improved? How can we get this thing in the process? One more idea is that the document, the guidelines itself don't require any tool right now. So if you decide, we can have some validation tool, but it's just, not required. You can achieve it without any tool. And the idea is that it's not attached to any tool to deploy things such as Helm or anything else. So if you want, we can use Helm for now, or use CAP, or use whatever. But the principles stay the same, and if we see that something is required, we can easily migrate to the new version. Yeah, so that's the thing. And yeah, I don't know. There might be some improvements from the language as well. At like what is has to be done. Might be so in my head it was that at some point this document will be like requirement for the component to become in Cloud Foundry organization. Like Kubernetes things that Cloud Foundry people build. It won't be, let's say, in promoted to the main Cloud Foundry organization from incubator until they satisfy some like must things. You can keep it in incubator if you want, but if you want to have it in Cloud Foundry main, it should satisfy it. So like, yeah. Means that it's production ready, and it's the same as other components. So everything will be the same. One more thing that I think in future it should have, that we should have at some point when we choose the templating, we should have the same properties for each component. So let's say if I don't know, if I want to say request, I can set requests for each component with the same, I don't know, value sample from Helm, or same template from, I don't know, CAP, or some template from another templating language, but it's basically the same template. I might change the higher level. Okay, this is, it's for copy, it's for Rini, it's for something else, but the generic things like, let's say, instances, number of instances, or VM type in Bosch, it will be the same like definition in future components, but we're quite far from it. And yeah, right now I would love to hear feedback, and would love to hear opinions if this can this become official Cloud Foundry, and can this be promoted. That's it for me.
I've just asked the CAP developers to weigh in and comment on the doc. Vlad, have you had a chance to look at it yet?
Yep, I haven't commented though yet. I read it before the holidays.
And I'm not sure how it was actually distributed. I think I stumbled across it in like the kind of main document that Eric created to kind of collect references to other documents. But I'm not sure that it was actually sent out via the Cloud Foundry mailing lists too, or do you want to like keep it in a smaller group first and then?
So I haven't sent it to the big mailing list. I was like, okay, I want to finish these things, but Eric just drop this link, and I'm like, okay, I'll share it with inside the. I shared inside CF4K's channel as well separately. I think that unless there will be something quite big that people want to contribute, I'll send it to the CFN channel, and then my hope would be that if it will be official, it shouldn't live in documents, it should live in some GitHub repo, and then we could share it with Kubernetes community, and yeah, hopefully become very popular. It's the best guidelines, Kubernetes.
And I think it would be okay, Alex, if you were to post it to CF Dev and explain, like, it's very open for comment in the current state of it. I think that would be perfectly fine. And really the people who are paying it, who would want to comment, I think will comment, and people who are just curious. I don't know. You could add a section at the top stating the state of it, I guess. I guess also I was wanting to suggest, Alex, it might be interesting to have for you to have some sort of table or something to say, say for CAPI, what have they adopted or not adopted, UAA adopted, not adopted, and then that may be also a source of feedback for you about any of these guidelines.
Oh, that makes sense.
Alex, do you know if the CF app runtime component teams, other than Irene, that are focusing on Kate's distributions for their components, if they've engaged with this document much?
I don't think so. I mentioned, but I don't think any people engaged. And to be honest, from the Irene side, it's hard from Dr. Chu's point that say, okay, this is required for the product because it's nice to have, but it's not okay, this is the most important feature. It's just lots of small nice to have that has to be done eventually. But if it's not official, it's hard to say okay, people, let's do these things because why? It's not top priority.
I was wondering, are there already some tools like a linter that does some of these checks? It's pretty mechanic to check if there are pod disruption budgets for all pods, or if I don't know, everything has a readiness probe. Are there already tools? Because if there's a standard tool and has a set of requirements, that might be easier to convince others that this is probably a good guideline.
So there are several tools. I can't tell them from spot, but there are several tools that validate it, but they do different validations. There's no one tool that does everything. I've tried to validate Irene with different tools and found different interesting things.
There's this really cool open source project that's just started to kind of take code and automatically push it to Kubernetes for you and do all the containerization. It's called Cloud Foundry. I don't know if anyone's tried it. I'm joking intentionally. I can't get away from the thought that none of these things were necessary when using CF. And I don't know which one of our things that we do, other than maybe MySQL, isn't a stateless app. Why? Just facetiously, if there was an Irene CRD, or call it whatever, right? Why wouldn't everything that we do just be one of them? An app CRD, right? Like a 12-factor app CRD, if you like, and it spits out deployments that follow all of this stuff, and all of the teams would just use that.
First question to that, is Irene setting pod disruption budgets and all this stuff? So would Irene, would an app follow these recommendations?
I think Irene does. Today, Irene doesn't do pod disruption budgets. I think Irene should be doing pod disruption budgets. Irene should set things up so that your app will not have downtime as long as it follows 12-factor app rules. Given that, I mean, that's what I think the value of CF is supposed to be. Instead of you doing this whole document, you just do a CF push and all these defaults are kind of correctly set and it just works and you don't care about that stuff. And I think what we'd want to tell our users is only drop down below the level of CF if you have a compelling use case for doing that. And I don't know what our use case is that requires us to drop down. So,
but I think there's something here like different levels of we do. I mean, pushing to Irene would just do the deployment, but you still have the problem of configuration management. How do you share configuration values between applications? And that's what we saw in the templating demos before. How do you reuse configuration data? And then you have guidelines on how applications should behave, that they should read a configuration file from somewhere, or their data directory should be configurable, or they should be containerizable. They should fit into containers at all. And that's also on the application level, the set of guidelines which are useful. And we might need to have something about packaging, about how are they supposed to look in Docker containers? Are we going to install all the components into the same folder or something? So it's really very much like normal applications which you have on Linux, which follow like a file system guideline or something. I think we need guidelines for several levels. And this document has some on all of them.
There are big companies deploying large-scale complex apps on Cloud Foundry, right? What do we tell them about managing configuration files? What templating tool are they using?
So I want to say that, I mean, right now, Cloud Foundry does from one point more than what is this document. Like packaging is covered, and it will be covered in any way. I don't think we'll require people build Docker images, and if we require build some Docker images, we won't like require them to provide labels if they provide third-party Docker images. So some best practices are like definitely automatable. Some, let's say, as I said, there are several sections. So let's say pod specification, a server specification, as a kind of subject. Okay, this can be covered by your component, like Irene ++ or whatever, Irene minus if you prefer, remove features. But I don't think that's like Kubernetes version support will be covered. I don't think that code guidelines will be covered, and this is something that we should do. I'm not sure that packaging will be covered in the same way as we can cover it right now. Maybe at some point, if customers will ask us, we can do like, okay, we have these labels with chars and everything, but it's more important for developers who want to support it. Like, okay, I got the request that someone deployed my application and I don't know which version do they use, and they don't know which version do they like, how to use the version. It's not that much of a case in the CF push world, I would say. So there will be some differences. I agree that something can be done by better tool, but to be honest, I'm not sure that like everything that is in this document is right and should be forced on the developers. Should be forced on our consumers.
I mean, I was thinking that one, getting some deeper engagement from the component teams could be useful just in terms of iterative feedback on the document. Like, I don't think it's in a form yet where we could say, like, please do all of these things exactly. This can be a collaborative discussion between the teams. And then I think maybe to Jules's point, that's an interesting aspect, is thinking about like how many of these practices should pertain to CF apps as well, in terms of how Irene is making those specifications. So that could even be another like meta evaluation table in this document. It's like, well, actually, what of these practices make sense for apps, or would be things that CF apps could provide as a higher level of abstraction to component development.
Right. I know I'm kind of beating the same drum on this, but I feel like if CF is going to be a tool for people to push 12-factor apps to Kubernetes, we should. This is a big opportunity. We're now pushing 12-factor apps to Kubernetes. We should be looking at what lessons we can apply to CF, and if we aren't using that flow, it's just a real bad smell. There's like something's that means we're missing something, right? Like what Alex says is right. Like some of these things may not be correct for CF push, but we should know, because we need to tell people who use CF push. If there's bits that you can't do in the CF push, like the upgrade between versions or whatever, that's something we need to document for the CF push people as much as it's something that we need to document for ourselves.
I feel like we're conflating a little bit here. There's a proposal for good practices, how to run, something more generic on Kubernetes, right? And then there is what do we do within our own system components. And I don't think there is disagreement that we shouldn't be able to do that with Irini. But I think there's also
That's
a separate,
interesting.
more generic, like it, Irini effectively is the implementation of this specification. Now, this specification may go a little bit wider than that, but Irini, let's say, could be a subset of that, right? So
I think that's a really good way of putting it. This is like the generic everything. Irini and CF should do as much of it as possible in tooling, right? So what I'm talking about is that question of should we have a tool to do it? I think that tool is CF, or at least like we should understand why it isn't if it isn't. But this document is separately valuable, and not everyone is doing a 12-factor app. Right? There will be some things that are stateful that we'll need to do that aren't suitable.
Also, my feeling is like Bosch added significant value to people operating the platform of CF in several ways, right? One of them was it enforced a pretty constrained set of things. Like you would know where log files are on a VM, which scripts got executed at what point in time, where to look at, where your persistent disk got mounted, and all this stuff, right? Of course, you cannot say like, well, like do your thing. It's a 12-factor app, right? You can do it, use init containers, do whatever, but it's very worthwhile having at least the core components of CF behave in a very similar and expectable way for people operating a platform.
Right. I think, let's be honest, I think we've learned that Bosch was too restrictive in the end. But I'm concerned that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? People do want to be able to pull the escape hatch and go down to Kubernetes, but I still think there's a ton of value to that opinionated high-level thing, and I hope there is, because otherwise I don't know what Cloud Foundry is for, right? Like I think that is the value that we're talking about, is having some opinions and guardrails and defaults on top of that thing.
I think that can come in phases, Jules. Like a lot of the stuff that there are several things in the doc that Bosch and CF don't do for you that an app developer would need to know or consider, right? Like what do you do if you get an interrupt signal as an app? That's your app to gracefully clean up, and that's good advice. But you wouldn't have expected to have done it unless you had developed apps before, right? So I think it's at a good starting point, and I also think getting feedback from components and from anyone who's trying to develop to build out this the components for the platform.
Let me be very clear. I think this document is great, and I'm not in any way against this document. I think we should have this document. I think the document should be on a repo. Frankly, I think we should just immediately put it on a repo and just like pull requests as we do things. I think this document is great and good. All I'm kind of pushing at is, I think rather than kind of trying to manually do all the steps, we should be thinking about is it possible for us all to just do something like 12-factor apps? Because that's what we're kind of trying to build, is a thing that lets people have all of this stuff for free. So we need the document to make sure we're doing this right and make sure we understand this stuff, and for the case that don't do it. But then we started a different conversation, I think, about whether there should be a linter or a tool that does it. And all I'm saying is I kind of think that tool is what we're building.
So what I want to say is that, like, I think there should be tool, and let's but I don't think it's right now is the time to build a tool. Build a tool without the validation that it works. Cloud Foundry didn't start with the Bosch immediately. It required we know some lessons. We definitely have them, but what I'm saying is that we don't at least I don't know if you have enough lessons from Kubernetes land, and that you can say, okay, this is all great. Let's build a tool because we know exactly what we want to build. We know exactly what Kubernetes people want to have. We kind of assume that it's the same as Cloud Foundry, but to be honest, it's too early for the tool. I would love to hear a little bit more from Kubernetes community before we start building from this tool. Like my next step would be going to some Kubernetes SIG and talking about it.
I do agree with Jules though that like a lot of the stuff that builds up Cloud Foundry is actually it should be pushed as an CF app. I think we don't have solved the bootstrapping part here, so we can't immediately start with that. Because I mean, we are right now building a tool that applies these for CF apps, right? That's Irene. And we learn by doing that, and all these lessons we learn there should immediately apply to what we have here, right? Like take away the MySQL, the blob store, and I don't know if there's another piece, I'm not sure. I think it's these two, right? That are definitely stateful, but all the rest shouldn't be.
Right.
But it's nothing we can do tomorrow.
Isn't the point of the abstraction that if we build to that high level thing, we can take care of figuring out those lessons and changing those lessons, right? That's why there's a value in that higher level abstraction. Is we don't know all the answers today, neither do the people who will be using the thing we're building. But they and us will not have to discover every one of those lessons themselves and keep up to date. They will write a 12-factor app, and we'll figure it out as we learn via this document and input from people and whatnot.
Quick time check because it's like top of the hour. I guess the Pivotal folks will need to drop off for an internal meeting. I guess question to the rest of the round, should we keep it short this time and resume next time? Probably with the people who haven't had a chance to take a look at the document being able to provide feedback there. That would be.
I'm okay with it being short today, but I do want to take this document in context with the discussion about the gradual withering away of the BOSH, the other topic that we were talking about, or the other front runner, the dual approach, and see if there's any conflict from what we talked about today with our the plans for the next few months with Quarks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Like reading the document in that context and providing feedback in in cases where there's kind of clashing requirements. That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then I think we are also looking forward to seeing the document from SI to then also provide feedback on that, because I think along the lines of what you said, Troy, that might kind of also fit in that kind of bigger discussion on how things evolve over time.
Yep. Yeah, I plan to send that out end of this week, hopefully, if not the first thing next week. So,
the other thing, just quickly before we go, Vlad and I were just talking. We think kubecf is ready to go to the foundation. So, Chris, we will talk to you about where that lives, and probably I'll reach out to Eric Mall to see about the where it fits in the structure and so forth. So
sounds good.
But the repo I think is ready. We just got to get a final thumbs up from Jeff Hobbs, and then it'll be on its way.
Okay, awesome. Then I guess thanks everybody for this time, and then we'll talk again in 2 weeks.
Bye.
bye.